Hi, you've tuned into the Administrators Table. I'm Bristol Town Administrator Steve Condenti. Today is October 6th, 2022. We're here this morning at the Water Pollution Control Facility on Wood Street and Plant Avenue. Great, exciting episode, and I think you're going to find it very interesting. With me today is Sewer Superintendent from the Town of Bristol, Jose Da Silva. Good morning, Jose.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
Good, thank you. And Chris Cronin, Vice President of Beta Engineering, who's been working at this facility as a consultant for many years. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning to you, Steve. Thanks for having me today.
My pleasure. So again, it's going to be an exciting episode, I think, and it's very important that we all understand what happens at this critical facility that keeps our waste water clean before it enters into Narragansett Bay. So real important facility. And we're going to go through the steps, talk about some of the improvements we're making, and we'll try to keep it under half an hour because that's our limit. It's going to be difficult, but come on in and join us. Jose and Chris, this is our first step. Jose, tell us what we have behind us.
We have one of our largest pump stations, the main pump station, but before I get into that, I'd like to explain that the sewer system can be broken down into three major components. The collection system, which is once the waters have left your home, it has to go through roughly 100 miles of public piping and pump stations till it gets here to the facility. What's behind me is the main station, the last of the collection system. From there, it goes through the facility where it's treated several stages to create a clean water discharge and the solids. That third part is the compost facility where we take the solids and make a Class A biosolid compost. So let's take a look inside the main pump station.
So Jose, this is the first lift that brings it up into the plant, right?
Yes, this technology is 2,500 years old. It's the two 6-foot Archimedes screw pumps. It's basically a corkscrew within a cylinder, angled at about 40 degrees. It spins. Water is lifted by centrifugal force up into the conduit and the design of the facility. From there, the water cascades into the next stages.
Okay, we're going to put our safety glasses on and look at this old technology that's still very efficient. Yeah, let's go up top. Just walked up the main lift station. Chris, tell us about the condition of this old technology.
Okay, so the pumps were last replaced in 2010 after a catastrophic failure event. They were replaced and recently coated in 2016. So the life of these pumps is 25 years. So they've been in place now for about 15.
Very good. What do you call the odor in there? It smells like
sewage.
Progress. Oh, it's sewage. Okay. We've just walked up to the first phase of the treatment process. And Jose, tell us where we're at now.
So we're just outside the Headworks building. Two processes occur here. First is our grit removal and then screening. The grit removal, it's an area that's a rectangular. We add diffused air. It keeps it in suspension. The inorganics and the organics drop out, and we collect them and into a hopper, and we dispose of them in the landfill. From there, the water cascades to the screening operation, where such things as plastics, wipes, and such that shouldn't be flushable, though there's an industry that says they cause havoc, that's removed. And the main purpose of this building is to remove those two items to keep it from clogging pumps and wearing out the material in there.
Right. The last thing we want is a sewer backup.
Exactly.
So that's why we keep stressing grease does not go down the sink, and wipes should not be flushed, right?
Yes, they clog the pipelines.
Yeah, even though they say they're biodegradable and they don't degrade quick enough.
Exactly, they're built for strength.
Yeah. So in this process, we're going to see clearly what we can collect before we send our wastewater to the next step. Come on in, let's take a look.
So we're inside the Headworks building. Over here you can see the grit removal. This looks like a pile of sand. Once that fills up, that'll be taken to the landfill and disposed of. And here we have the screening operation. If you come along on the other side, I can show you an operation.
So there's your wipes.
So this is removing wipes, plastics, material that we don't want going further downstream, which will clog our pipes and cause maintenance problems. So this is removed daily, again, and it's taken up to the landfill for disposal.
So to our right is where we just left. That's the Headworks building. And from there, the water continued to the primary settling tanks.
Yes, this is our primary treatment facility, where basically we have 3 tanks. It looks like an in-ground pool. The water comes in one end, exits the other end. Solids, which drop to the bottom, are then sent to the filter room, and we can get into that later. Any grease that floats, there's an endless chain within each tank that pushes solids that are floating to one end and scrapes, as it makes its circular path, solids that have settled on the bottom to a hopper where they can be removed for treatment.
Chris, how are we now improving this process?
So we just awarded a $6 million solids handling improvement project. Essentially, what it's going to do is we're currently co-settling in these tanks. We're taking secondary solids as well as the primary solids, settling them out here before we send them to dewatering. What was happening is the sludge blankets would build up during heavy flows. The solids would be washed through the system and upset the process. So what we're doing now is we're going to be installing a new storage mixing tank where we're going to be taking the primary solids separate from the secondary solids, mixing it and blending it before dewatering. It's a much more efficient process, gets the solids out quicker and more efficiently.
Good. So that $6 million means a cleaner Bristol Harbor and a cleaner bay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good for the folks of Bristol.
That's what we want to hear. Let's taking a short walk to step 3 of the treatment process. Jose, where are we?
We're right at the front of our RBC units, which is the beginning of our secondary treatment. Bristol uses RBC units, which stands for rotating biological contactors. They're cylinders with a large surface area. We'll take a quick look as we walk by there. Bristol's went this route because of the high I&I. It's more efficient than activated sludge.
Jose, excuse me, I&I, can you explain what that means?
Sure, that's inflow and infiltration. That's excess water that gets into the system. There are 2 classes of sewer systems, sanitary and combined. Combined with has storm water that comes in along with your plumbing from your household. Bristol is a sanitary, but it's an old system. A lot of old pipes and tie-ins that shouldn't be there, sump pumps, downspouts and such. So though we're designed for 3.8 million gallons of water that should be coming through here each day, it fluctuates. I've been here where it's been over 14 million in a heavy rainstorm. So what we have behind here are 4 trains of 6 RBC units. And also behind me, I'd like to show you the state. We are permitted every 5 years. We got to meet parameters of cleaning the water and meeting that so much reduction in BOD, biological oxygen demand and such. And this right here is a sampler unit that we can test. We got to meet protocols for the laboratory to meet state and EPA standards. And when we get to the lab, our chemists can explain that.
Good. Okay. Chris, can you update us on the condition of the RBC units?
So we're happy to say, the town's happy to say that we just replaced the final 8 RBC units. The previous units had been in place and in operation for over 30 to 40 years. In phases, we replaced all 24 probably in the last 10 years. So right now we're in excellent shape.
So in plain terms, what's behind us in this step is that's where the biology happens. That's where the bacteria is broken down, essentially, right?
That's right.
Okay. We took a little bit of a sidetrack here to show you the RBCs. So there's 24 of these, as Chris Cronin just explained. This is, most simply said, this is where the bugs are. Jose, tell us about it.
Yeah, so like I said, there are cylinders that are laying on their side. If you look inside, you see what looks like a radiator material, large surface area. The bugs are fixed on there, and as the water passes through, they grab that material, break it down. They're very active right here. As you can see, it's the beginning of the buffet line, nice and shaggy, the way we like it. The bugs are happy as we process along the way. I'll show you at the end, and you'll see quite a difference.
Okay, thank you.
So here we are at the final RBC in this train. As you can see, there's not much material. There's not much left in the water for the bugs to eat. The buffet line has come to an end. They are happy. They've eaten all their fill.
At this point, you notice that the odor is strong at this point of the process.
Yes, the biological activity is coming to its end.
Okay, we just walked over to phase 4. This is a section that is well known and considered to be a big part of the water treatment facility. Jose, what are we looking at?
So what we have here behind me is one of 2 final settling tanks. After the secondary treatment, the material there ends up here, settles to the bottom, and from there it's pumped to our primary where we have co-settling. If you remember, Chris was talking about separating the 2 streams so that we can have more efficient dewatering. So right here, this is the final step before chlorination and dechlorination, and the water ends out in the harbor.
We're now at the final stage of the wastewater process. This is called disinfection. Jose, tell us what we're looking at.
Okay, what we have here are 2 tanks. We add chlorine, sodium hypochlorite to the water column. There's a mixer that mixes it so there's a fair and good sample of chlorine throughout that water column. The tank itself is designed so it doesn't straight run from one side to the other. It S's back and forth like a maze so that it has the detention time to mix that water. The chlorine in that water will get to the pathogens, and then it cascades over. If you look, there's another subpole, and we add sodium bisulfite to that to absorb the chlorine, because the EPA has now told us, along with the fishermen group, that too much chlorine is detrimental to the fisheries. So we have to add enough chlorine to disinfect and then remove that chlorine, and it's all in the parameters, and we're going to test it. We do fecal and enterococci 3 times a week and make sure we're in those parameters.
Because Jose, how many gallons do you think we're processing today?
Today we're at 3.3 million gallons, and like I say, we have to have enough detention time. If we're in the high I&I events of the rainstorm and we go up to 10, 12 million gallons, that water's speeding through. We got to adjust our chemicals, make sure there's more of it, and that we have the kill of those fecal and enterococci.
Okay. So you said neutralizing. That's the main word here. You want to neutralize the chlorine. I know we've made some improvements here. Chris, can you talk about our improvements?
So the primary improvements that we've made are the instrumentation associated with the disinfection process. Jose's thrilled about it. We had a system in here that was keeping them up tight. So now we've got a more reliable system that's controlling the amount of chlorine. We've got it dosing based on flow and time, and similarly with the sodium bisulfite, so that we're controlling the amount of chlorine that's heading out to the bay.
So the less amount of water that we treat, the less chlorine we need. That's why it's so important to find those leaks within that 100 miles of pipes that are out there in the street. And that's why it's so important to disconnect those sump pumps from the sewer system. Right? Okay. I think we can take a look at the press room where the solids that we've collected from the system are pressed and brought to the compost facility. Don't worry, that's going to be a separate episode because we could spend an hour up there talking about that process. So let's take a walk over to the solids handling. Just ran into Scott Gonsalves, the operator at the compost facility. He's driving one of our new 2020 Mack J-hook trucks. This truck they're taking the solids from the process back to compost. 2 trips a day.
So we're now at the office
the
and
office
about to enter the lab. We talked about 100 miles of pipes that you maintain with your crew here, Jose. I think there's a map behind you, right?
Yes, we have several because it's been some areas over 100 years old. This area right here shows the contracts that went into neighborhoods when we upgraded. This was mostly from the 80s and 90s. This map right here shows all the piping throughout and manholes throughout the town. This is the earliest one from 1910 and 20 individual street maps we have. We refer to all of it because there's a lot of moving parts.
Hey, Jose, hold on a second. One point that I have to make because I hear it sometimes. There's a little bit of confusion. This is our sewer system. This isn't our storm drain system. So what you see here in green is all the sewer. It's a closed system. Okay, correct. That goes from plumbing to that outflow that we're just at. We call it the disinfection area. That's where it ultimately ends up. We also have a storm system which is managed by the Department of Public Works. That's for essentially rainwater. But once in a while I hear that there's a little bit of confusion. The closed manholes, that's Jose's sewer system. The grates with the storm drains out in the road, that goes into a drain system that ends up out into the bay or the harbor. So two systems. Yep. And behind you, Jose, I think you're going to talk about the 9 pump stations that we have.
Yeah, 11 pump stations.
11.
And they're broken up into the watershed. So this yellow is Silver Creek. The green here is Kickamuit. And so, because you can only bury the pipe so deep until it gets prohibitive. So it's a collection point. That water is collected, system of pipes moving on to the next one until it eventually gets to us.
Okay. I'd like to meet with the chemist. I know she's out taking some readings right now. We'll wait for her to get back and be back with you in a minute. We're here now in the laboratory with the chemist and pre-treatment coordinator, Shaylin Davies. Shaylin, I know you were out in the facility. Can you tell us what you were doing?
Yes, I was taking one of my 3 pulls from the chlorine contact tank. There are 4 different sections that we take pulls from. The front where the chlorine is introduced, and when I add the reagent, it'll look like this. It'll be more of a dark pink, showing that there is a good amount of chlorine in there. I'll get the exact number, but this is usually a good indicator. And then there's the middle of the tank where the water is starting to work through and it's taking time to have contact with the chlorine, and it'll end up being a little bit lighter. And these are the 2 sides that we average together for a reading for the middle of the tank. And then at the end, when the water has had enough contact with the chlorine, we neutralize it with sodium bisulfite, before it goes out to the bay. And it'll look clear like this.
So we're in good shape, right?
Yes.
Okay. And all of this is reported how often to who?
We do 3 pulls a day, every day of the week, and we report monthly to DEM all of those readings. And if something was off, we have the SCADA system to adjust things, and we can calibrate all the probes when needed. And yeah, we can adjust how much chemical is being put in and neutralized, and make sure that we're meeting all of our requirements.
Good. Well, you certainly keep an orderly lab here, and we appreciate everything you do with this important job that you have. So thank you, Shaylin.
Well, that's this month's episode of the Administrators Table. We hope that you enjoyed this tour of the wastewater treatment facility. I want to thank the residents, the taxpayers of Bristol for your continued support on upgrading this important facility. We're going to keep going. We're going to make improvements. We've got a good partnership with the facility members here that are working. Jose, thank you for all that you do and your staff. Chris, thank you for your dedication to Bristol. Also, we'll see you next time on the Administrators Table. Stay well, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Hey, hey, Bristol, now what you gonna do? The whole world knows your colors come shining through and through. Hey, hey, Bristol, now what you gonna say? You're gonna have your hands full on Independence Day.